Daniel Carter had always believed that a peaceful life was more valuable than a famous one. At 39, he lived with his 12-year-old daughter, Maya, in a quiet American suburban neighborhood where most people knew each other by name. Daniel was a single father who worked from home, repairing specialized equipment for local businesses. He kept to himself, took Maya to school every morning, helped her with homework every evening, and spent his weekends fixing things around their modest house. To his neighbors, he was simply a quiet man who never caused trouble. What nobody in the neighborhood knew was that Daniel had spent years working with elite military personnel, teaching them discipline, defensive tactics, and close-quarters combat. He had trained members of the U.S. Navy SEAL community before leaving that life behind. Daniel never mentioned it because he had no desire to impress anyone. After losing his wife several years earlier, his only mission was raising Maya and giving her a normal childhood. Across the street lived Ryan Blake, a 29-year-old black belt champion who had recently won a major national tournament. Ryan was talented, athletic, and extremely confident, but his confidence often crossed into arrogance. He enjoyed demonstrating his skills in front of neighbors and constantly reminded people that nobody in the area could match him. At first, Daniel paid little attention to him. Whenever Ryan practiced in his driveway, Daniel simply continued working in his garden or playing basketball with Maya. Ryan noticed that Daniel never seemed impressed. That bothered him. One afternoon, Ryan was practicing with two friends in front of his house when Maya accidentally kicked a basketball too far. The ball rolled into Ryan's driveway and stopped near his training equipment. Maya ran over to retrieve it. Ryan picked it up first and looked at her. "You should be more careful," he said. Maya apologized and reached for the ball. Ryan held it above her head. "Maybe your dad should teach you some discipline." Maya looked uncomfortable. Daniel had seen what happened from across the street. He walked over calmly and said, "Give her the ball, Ryan." Ryan laughed. "Relax, we're just having fun." Daniel replied, "She's apologized. That's enough." Ryan tossed the ball toward Maya and smiled sarcastically. "Sure, whatever you say." Maya walked back with her father. "Dad, I don't like him," she whispered. Daniel looked at her and said, "You don't have to like everyone. Just don't let someone else's behavior change who you are." He thought the incident was over. He was wrong. Over the next few weeks, Ryan became increasingly irritated by Daniel's calm attitude. He began making comments whenever Daniel passed by. "Still pretending you're tough?" he would say. Daniel ignored him. Ryan eventually started telling other neighbors that Daniel was afraid of him. Some people laughed it off, but others began believing the story. Daniel didn't care. He had spent years around people who could genuinely hurt someone, and he knew that the loudest person in the room was rarely the strongest. One Saturday evening, Daniel was returning home after picking Maya up from a friend's house. Maya had gone inside ahead of him. Daniel was carrying groceries toward his front door when Ryan suddenly stepped into his path. Two of his friends stood nearby. Ryan folded his arms and smiled. "We need to talk." Daniel stopped. "About what?" Ryan answered. "You keep ignoring me." Daniel sighed. "Because I don't have anything to say." Ryan stepped closer. "Everyone thinks you're scared." Daniel looked directly at him. "I'm not interested in proving anything." Ryan laughed. "That's convenient." He moved closer, until there was barely any space between them. "You know what I think? I think you're pretending to be some tough guy because you don't want people to know you're weak." Daniel remained completely calm. He placed the grocery bag down. "Ryan, go home." Ryan's expression hardened. "Or what?" Daniel did not answer. Ryan suddenly grabbed Daniel's shirt and shoved him backward. Daniel barely moved. His balance remained perfectly controlled. Ryan tried again, harder. Daniel stepped back once and looked at him with a quiet expression. "Don't do this," Ryan smiled. "What happened? You going to call someone?" From the upstairs window, Maya saw what was happening. She became frightened and shouted, "Dad!" Daniel looked toward the house and immediately raised one hand, signaling her to stay inside. His priority was still protecting her. Ryan noticed the reaction and smirked. "Your daughter is watching. Maybe she'll finally see what kind of man her father really is." Daniel's expression changed slightly, not with anger, but with seriousness. "You don't know anything about me." Ryan suddenly swung a punch. Daniel moved just enough to avoid it. He didn't strike back. He simply controlled Ryan's wrist and redirected his momentum, causing Ryan to stumble forward. Daniel released him immediately. Ryan froze. His friends stared. They had expected Daniel to panic. Instead, Daniel had moved with precision that did not look like something learned casually. Ryan's pride was wounded. "Lucky move," he muttered. Daniel shook his head. "Go home." Ryan charged again. This time, Daniel stepped aside, controlled Ryan's arm, and brought him safely to the ground without injuring him. The entire movement happened in seconds. Ryan stared upward, stunned. Daniel released him and stepped back. "I don't want to fight you," Daniel said quietly. "I'm giving you a chance to walk away." Ryan stood slowly. His face had changed. For the first time, he looked uncertain. Then one of Ryan's friends whispered, "Who are you?" Daniel looked at him. "Nobody important." But at that exact moment, an older man walking down the sidewalk stopped. He had seen the technique. His face went pale. "Daniel Carter?" Daniel turned. The man stared at him for several seconds before saying, "You trained my unit." Ryan looked confused. The older man continued, "You trained Navy SEALs." The street became silent. Daniel closed his eyes briefly. He had spent years making sure nobody knew. Maya came outside and stood near the doorway. "Dad?" Daniel looked at her and smiled gently. "It's okay, sweetheart." Ryan stared at Daniel as though he were seeing a completely different person. "You trained Navy SEALs?" he asked. Daniel picked up his groceries. "A long time ago." Ryan swallowed, but his pride still wouldn't let him apologize. Instead, he stepped forward and said, "Then prove you're really as good as everyone says." Daniel looked at him for a long moment. Then he answered quietly, "I already did?" And he walked inside with his daughter. Ryan remained standing in the driveway, completely humiliated. But the following morning, something unexpected happened. A black SUV stopped outside Daniel's house. 3 former military instructors stepped out, and one of them carried a photograph. That would reveal exactly who Daniel Carter had been. The next morning, Maya was eating breakfast when she heard a vehicle stop outside. She looked through the window and saw 3 men standing beside a black SUV. They were older than her father, but their posture and movements immediately suggested that they were military veterans. Daniel walked toward the window and froze when he saw them. He recognized the men instantly. They were people from a chapter of his life he had tried very hard to leave behind. Maya looked at him. "Dad, who are they?" Daniel took a breath. "Old friends." Before Maya could ask anything else, someone knocked on the door. Daniel opened it, and the first man smiled. "It's been a long time, Carter." Daniel shook his hand. "Too long." The man looked past him and noticed Maya. "Your daughter." Daniel nodded proudly. "Maya." The man smiled at her. "Your father was one of the best instructors I've ever known." Maya looked at Daniel in surprise. "You never told me that." Daniel smiled awkwardly. There wasn't much to tell. The 3 men entered the house, and one of them placed an old photograph on the table. It showed Daniel years earlier standing beside a group of elite military trainees. Maya stared at it. Her father looked younger, more serious, and completely different from the quiet man she knew. "You trained these men?" she asked. Daniel nodded. "Why did you stop?" Daniel looked down for a moment. "Because I realized I wanted a different life." He explained that after leaving the military training world, he had married Maya's mother. They had built a simple life together until her illness changed everything. After she passed away, Daniel decided that his daughter needed a father more than the world, needed another instructor. He had chosen to disappear from that old world completely. Meanwhile, Ryan had spent the entire night thinking about what happened. His reputation had always been based on being the strongest man around. Yet a quiet single father had controlled him without throwing a single damaging strike. Ryan couldn't understand how someone with Daniel's ability could choose to live such an ordinary life. That afternoon, Ryan finally walked across the street and knocked on Daniel's door. Daniel opened it. Ryan looked uncomfortable. "I came to apologize." Daniel remained silent. Ryan continued, I was arrogant. I thought, because I won competitions, I was better than everyone else. Daniel nodded. That's a lesson many fighters learn eventually. Ryan looked down. I shouldn't have touched you. And I shouldn't have involved your daughter. Daniel's expression became serious. Never use someone's family to intimidate them. That's where confidence becomes cowardice. Ryan nodded. I understand. Daniel stepped aside. Come in. Ryan looked surprised. Daniel continued. You wanted to prove you were strong. Maybe instead of proving it to everyone else, you should start proving it to yourself. Ryan accepted the advice. Over the next several weeks, something unexpected happened. Ryan began training under Daniel. He learned that martial arts was not about aggression, intimidation, or showing off. Daniel taught him patience, awareness, restraint, and responsibility. Every time Ryan became frustrated, Daniel reminded him that controlling his temper was harder than controlling an opponent. Maya often watched the training from the porch. She loved seeing her father teach again. For the first time in years, Daniel seemed to have found a piece of himself he thought he had lost forever. One afternoon, Ryan asked Daniel, "Why didn't you fight me when you had the chance?" Daniel smiled. Because winning against you would have been easy. Helping you become a better man was harder. Ryan looked at him quietly. That sentence stayed with him. Months later, Ryan entered another national tournament. This time, he fought differently. He was disciplined, respectful, and calm. He won several matches and eventually reached the final. During the final round, his opponent tried to provoke him. Ryan remembered Daniel's words and refused to lose control. He won. But instead of celebrating arrogantly, Ryan walked directly to Daniel. You taught me how to win without becoming someone I don't respect. Daniel smiled. Maya hugged Ryan and congratulated him. Ryan laughed. Your dad is a tough teacher. Maya smiled. I know. Daniel looked at his daughter and realized something important. For years he had believed leaving his old life behind was the best way to protect Maya. But perhaps the real lesson was that he did not have to hide from his past. He could use what he had learned to help others without allowing violence to define him. That evening, Daniel stood outside his house watching the sunset. Maya sat beside him. Dad? Yeah? Are you happy? Daniel looked at her. He smiled. More than I've been in a long time. Maya rested her head against his shoulder. Across the street, Ryan was teaching a group of neighborhood kids basic self-defense and discipline. He no longer acted like the neighborhood champion. He acted like a mentor. Daniel had never wanted fame, trophies, or recognition. He had simply wanted to raise his daughter in peace. Yet sometimes life brings the past back for a reason. Ryan had cornered a quiet, single father expecting to find a weak man. Instead, he discovered a teacher. And Daniel discovered that his greatest strength had never been his ability to defeat an opponent. It had always been his ability to walk away from a fight and still have the courage to teach others why they should do the same.